All right. I do believe we are live. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Break the Rules stream. I am Lev Polyakov at LevPo on Twitter, coming at you all the way live for a very special event today. We have got a Canadian Catholic here who is not Geo and who is around the Ontario area as well. Is that correct, Canadian Catholic?
That's right. Yeah, I'm in Toronto.
So
Oh man,
how far
I feel
away
sorry.
how far away are you guys from each other then theoretically? Like Gio, what would you say?
Hour and a half, 2 hours, betting on traffic.
All right.
Whereabouts?
We should do a stream later on
from
when
Niagara,
you guys
like realistically from Niagara, outside of Niagara Falls. So yeah.
Well, we're going to do a stream later on when you guys are in the same spot because you do have the opportunity to actually meet each other. Two
We'll
Canadian
do a Baked
Catholics.
Alaska style IRL stream. That's we'll
Yes.
go down Bloor and Young and like do
Exactly. I mean, I hope that there would be some kind of a, there can only be one Highlander style showdown between you two. But we'll see what the day brings. Anyway, today we are talking about whether Christianity is logical with Canadian Catholic, Gnostic informant. And once again, everybody who is watching this, if you are new to BTR, give a giant subscribe, a big like, click the bell. All that good stuff is incredibly important for this stream to grow, and we really appreciate you doing that. As well as patreon.com/breaktherules. Become a patron, support Break the Rules, and you're going to get a lot of goodies, as well as Patreon exclusive streams. We had a recent one, which was amazing, with what is going on with me? Anyway, subscribe. Yeah, Father McCarthy, exactly. I am ashamed that I was not able to say the name right now because I'm so excited about the stream. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen,
Lev was fighting his genetics right there from saying a name of a Catholic priest. So
we are going to be talking today about Christianity, about whether Christianity is logical or not. So we are going to start off. First of all, I want to get a little bit of an intro to Canadian Catholic just because this is their first time here. And then I want to do an opening statement about 3 minutes long. I'm going to be checking the time from each one of you guys. So let's go for that. So Canadian Catholic, tell us all about yourself.
You want to hear about my life?
I want to hear about your life. In short.
Well, my name is Joshua. I am 22 years old. I stand just under 5'10", 5 feet 10 inches tall, just under that. So I guess 5'9", and something, maybe half or something, if that's what you want. I have blue eyes and I'm a Christian.
There we go. So we are going to get started with the 3 minute. Let's see. Gnostic, would you like to start? This was your original plan to have the stream, so I would love for you to do the honors.
Before we begin, I just want to get two things straight. Definition of Christianity, which I think you and I both agree on. This should be Nicene Creed Christianity. So Orthodox, Catholic, maybe even Protestant, but it has to be the belief that Jesus died on the cross and fulfilled the scriptures. That has to be what we have to define that right away. Do you agree on that?
Yeah, I have no qualms with that.
Now, the definition of logical, based on earlier or otherwise known statements, events, conditions, reasonable, relating to, in accordance with, in nature, reasoning of, capable of reasoning. Does that sort of where do you stand on the definition of logical?
Well, I believe the title was your idea, so I'll be happy to accommodate whatever.
Okay. Then I'm going to go with the one that pops right up on my search engine. It says based on earlier or otherwise known statements, events, conditions, reasonable. That's it.
Reasonable. I understand.
Completely simple definition, very broad. You could kind of do a lot.
Sure.
That's a definition, though. That's what we're going to go with.
Okay.
All right, well, I'm going to start the timer then. So, Gnostic, go forward. Yes, Joe?
No, I was just going to say, that's kind of limiting. I like I guess, Plantiga, warranted true belief, I guess, would be a better... But that's just, that's just autism. So, yeah, let's start this stuff.
All right, let's start this thing. I have the timer right here.
All right. So, Christianity is illogical. And the reason why is simple. Christianity claims to be a fulfillment of the Old Testament. And if you look at the Old Testament, there are so many things that we can already knock right out the park. Okay. First of all, if you are to take the Bible literally for what it says, the Bible is saying that the world was created in the year 4004 BC. I mean, if you don't agree with that, the Bible's lying, because all you have to do is simply take the characters in the Bible, take the genealogy of Jesus, from Jesus all the way to Abraham, all the way to Noah, all the way to Adam, and you simply get a date of 4004 BC, roughly. Maybe I'm off a little bit, but it's around that time. Now, that is easily, I don't even have to explain how that's just completely false. But let's give them the benefit of the doubt. Let's say it's all just a metaphor, whatever. The world was kicked off in Big Bang and all this stuff, and Adam and Eve is just the first whatever. Who knows? First whatever that means. Well, now you still have to prove that Abraham existed, Noah existed, King David, who King David claims to be. Well, that's easily checked. You can easily check out that Abraham didn't exist. The stories of Abraham in the Old Testament claim that he was in these giant wars in Syria, in the Levant, in Judea. Didn't happen. Nowhere in this historical record is there an Abraham going to war and winning giant battles over the land of Judea. Didn't happen. There is no such thing. So there you got that. Noah. I skipped Noah. I shouldn't have did that. Noah is just completely ridiculous. And I'm saying all this for a reason. I'm going to get to Christianity really before. How much time do I got?
You have 1 minute.
Okay. Noah's flood didn't happen. It claims that happened in 2800 BC. The same logic I just used. You take the characters in the Bible and you do the math. This person was this years old when you had this person as a child. You bring it back to Noah, you're in the year 2800 BC for this flood. That didn't happen. We know what was going on at the time period. We know the Sargonic Empire was on the rise. You can't have an empire with armies and weapons without a giant population. It's impossible. So there was no 8 people populating the world in 2800 BC. It didn't happen. I say that to say this. If the Old Testament's false, then why did Jesus die for our sins? And what is sin anyway? So the reason why I'm saying this is, if Jesus died for a myth, then why did it even happen? And I'll get to I'm going to get to Jesus in my next go around, but I want to hear your response to that.
Bam. All right, there we go.
Wait, I don't get how we went from the big Abraham. Oh shit! Even well, next time Lev will put graphics of an alarm. I don't know. I don't get how we got from Abraham didn't fight in wars to Jesus didn't die for our sins. But anyways, I'm just a moderator for now, so cue up the time left for King.
Well, Gio, you're going to decide who wins.
That's the question when it gets to the time.
Right.
Gio, I want you to be the impartial judge. You are going to declare who the winner is.
Oh man.
Okay. So, all right, Canadian Catholic.
Bitch, you just did that for PR.
Go for it, buddy. All right, I'm setting the timer. Here we go.
Wait, should Canadian Catholic use his time better to formulate a positive argument or to just respond to Gnostic?
He can do whatever he wants. You can do whatever you want.
All right.
All right, here we go.
Okay, I will try to respond as briefly as I can. So first of all, we obviously did not hear why Christianity is illogical. We heard nothing of the sort. But I'm not blaming Mr. Neil, because he said he will go back to that. So just to respond to a little bit, I mean, I thought, with all due respect, that Neil's case was appalling so far. He refers to biblical chronology that's recognized very well to be a huge literary construct that offers us a rich theological history. And he applies some American fundamentalism to it to pretty much argue that it didn't happen, therefore it's a myth. That's the first part that I think is preposterous. Secondly, he argues that Old Testament would not be true if things did not historically happen. That's another false statement, a false dichotomy. Something can be true without it being historical. That's another complete false dichotomy. The other point is, what I got at least was arguments by... So I got 2 things here. One was argument from silence. There is no record of Abraham fighting these wars. And the other one was simply attacking a straw man or giving me something that I should defend, something much more than I have to, right? So one point is, for example, saying that if I want to maintain that Noah existed, I have to maintain that the global flood happened. That's not the case. All I have to maintain that Noah happened is that Noah existed. It's really not relevant that the global flood happened. have happened. Global flood may well be a very rich and interesting theological story, as it is recognized, as it has been recognized by many historians, Julian Willenhouse and so on and so forth. So I do think that these are horrible things. The other point was just by assertion saying that Jesus died for a myth, which, I mean, I don't know where this came from. Presumably, it comes from this idea that original sin didn't happen, which I would obviously deny, but we never touched on it. So my conclusion would simply be that pretty much every single point that Mr. Neal brought up is preposterous, ridiculous, and none of them even begin to point at Christianity's illogicality. In fact, the case is horrible as far as I can tell, and I concede my rest of it.
All right, you still have some more time
So,
left. I don't know if you want to.
A contrary devil's advocate question would be, let me think. I guess, is it contingent that the truth of Christianity relies on its historicity, and if you chuck the historicity of it, is it still true?
Yeah. So the first
I would say the questions for the end.
Okay, sure.
Oh shit! Wait, we're still doing the back and forth.
Yeah, we're gonna do a back and forth, and then. Yeah, there we go.
I didn't tell you that, so you didn't know.
And by the way, speaking of questions, everybody need those super chat questions out there for all of us to get to. Right now, Alex Redmond is the king of the super chat. Where did that graphics go, by the way?
And try not to Fed post too hard in those super chats.
Yes, unless it concerns food. Then you can feed post all you want. Feed post and sneed post. Anyway, Gnostic, your response. And should we keep a timer for this, or should we just let it flow?
Let's have a timer, then we'll.
All right, here. I'm gonna time it one more time. All right.
So I just found it interesting that you conceded that the flood didn't happen. That I thought was pretty interesting, because without this flood happening, where do we get to this idea of sin? Like we said, we agreed that this debate is on logical definition of based on earlier otherwise known statements, events, conditions. That was what we agreed to. So for the New Testament to be true, and it's claiming to be a fulfillment of the Old Testament, of salvation from the sins that Adam and Eve created, and that the world was flooded out and restarted under Noah. If all that didn't happen, then there's no point to the New Testament at all. There's 0 point. It doesn't make any sense at all. And so that's why I said that. I just wanted to get that out the way. But let's get into Christianity itself, okay? So it has tons of ideas of contradictions that are really important. Not just somebody said they were at one location, another person said they didn't. We're talking about who's Joseph's father. Matthew 1:16 says he is the son of Jacob. And Luke 3:23, he's the son of Heli. By the way, Luke and Matthew give 2 different genealogies, and I know that a lot of Christians will say one's Mary and one's Joseph, but they both say Joseph in the genealogy. So you have 2 Joseph genealogies that are different. That's right there is a fallacy in itself. Now the Christians changed the 10 Commandments. You have the only thing in the entire Bible given by God himself, etched by his hand to Moses. And he gives 10 commandments. But somehow, when it gets to Christianity, they have to tweak it a little bit, because for the Sabbath, who cares about the Sabbath? Remember the holy day. Let's change 4 and put it to 3. Let's take 10 and put it to 9. That they even changed around the order of the Bible books to make it so that they end on Malachi, in which Malachi ends with the need for the Messiah. The definition of the Messiah changes. The Messiah is supposed to be based on King Cyrus or King David and Moses. It's supposed to be the one who takes the 12 tribes and unites them and reigns the kingdom of heaven on earth. Did that happen? No. So as far as I know, no Messiahs came yet. There is no Messiah. In fact, Yahweh makes it very clear that anyone changes my commandments or my laws, that is the opposite of what he's looking for. He tells Jesus is technically the anti-Messiah. He's taking the law and saying the Sabbath's made for man. He's changing this. He's turning the Torah on its head in a new fashion. He's against the Jews. He's not uniting the tribes. He does the opposite. So you got that. You got, when was he born? In Luke 2:26 or Luke 2:22-6, he is born in 6 AD, which would be the time of Quirinius, or in Matthew, he's born in days of Herod, 4 BC. That's a 10-year gap.
All right, there we go. So does Yahweh say no way to Jesus, or is that not the case? We will find
Just
out.
stop, Lev. Just stop.
All right, Canadian Catholic, go for it.
Well, I made notes, and I'm afraid to say that this was one more really, really bad demonstration from Neil. No offense
It's not an argument.
Of course, it's not an argument because there was no argument here. It was just a bunch of assertions. But I think even assertions were horrible. That's actually even worse and preposterous. So first of all, I would like. Can I finish? Isn't it my turn?
Neil, please. I think if it's timed, then everyone should
Start
be
it over.
muted.
Start it over. But actually, give an
Yeah.
argument this time. Don't just say you didn't
All
like
right,
it
here.
this time.
We're starting
All right.
over.
3, 2. It's right.
Okay, that's fine. So the first thing that I would like to explain to Neil and educate him on is that flood has nothing to do with original sin. This is well known in Christian theology and even in the Old Testament. The flood story has nothing to do. The other point is that I do believe in flood. I don't believe in the global flood, and I don't have to believe that either way. So nothing in maintaining original sin is concerned with the global flood having happened. This is just ignorance, and I would appreciate encouragement. The second point is biblical contradictions, and my philosophical case is simple. No biblical contradiction could in principle show that Christianity is illogical, because no one can argue, for example, that God could not preserve two documents that on their face are contradictory to give a greater point. Does Neil have an argument against that? Of course not. Let's assume, for example, in the case of genealogies, that Luke's genealogy and Matthew's genealogy are based on two perhaps contradictory Jewish documents that were important to Gentiles to assess Jesus's, Jesus's pedigree. Is that not inspired, even if they are prima facie not both historically accurate? Of course they can be. So there is no case absolutely to be made. It's just ignorance nonsense. Now, another point here was about... Christians changed the Torah. So now there's a lot I could delve into, but the more important thing in reading Paul is, well, when we're talking about change, what are Christians concerned with, right? If Christians were concerned with keeping the Torah, then indeed they've changed it. But Christians aren't concerned with keeping the Torah when we're concerned with keeping the Ten Commandments. What we're concerned with is keeping the Ten Commandments as part of natural law, which is what Paul argues for. Paul argues for keeping what Christians call natural law, of course, and it was the great medieval theologian John Duns Scotus that identified that all 10 commandments deal with natural law. So so when we have 10 commandments, we're not interested in furthering the Torah or the Jewish religion. We don't follow the Jewish religion. We follow the Christian religion. As it happens, the Torah has applicability for natural law, and that's why we're happy keeping it. So we are keeping it as far as it comports with natural law, and as that happens, keeping the Sabbath has nothing to do with natural law, though the underlying idea behind keeping the Sabbath does. So, no Messiah. I don't even remember what this was, but his argument was... Well, I think it was a very badly formed argument about how Jesus wasn't the Messiah that Jews expected, which we would have to get into more specifically, but I don't know. When was Jesus born has the same exact problem that Neil brought up. If it so happens, for example, that Luke's point is less to do history and to do maybe Greek biography, and he did so infallibly, why is that not inspired? Of course, Neil has nothing to say here. Absolutely nothing to answer to that. He just...
Of course I did.
Can I finish? So has nothing to say here. So quite frankly, I see absolutely no evidence whatsoever that Neil has presented to argue that Christianity is illogical. Just throw out a bunch of assertions. There is no argument, no inference, nothing. It's, as far as I can tell, a non sequitur. And here, in fact, to just demonstrate Neil's ignorance. Okay, sure. I'll stop.
All right. It is funny, by the way, how a Gnostic just said like one sentence. Like, I have a feeling like if Gnostic would have just uttered like then Canadian Catholic would have been allowed to let me finish. But anyway,
No, but like to be fair though, you know. But before you answer, Gnostic, I have one question. There are sort of, I think, many disagreements between Thomists and people that follow Duns Scotus. But just for clarity's sake, are you equating sort of the logical soundness of Christianity with natural law itself? And what would you say to other people who are not as favorable to natural law, even, you know, certain sects of orthodoxy?
Hold that question, because I don't want to get off. I don't want to.
Okay, yeah. So Neil, you go ahead.
That's a good question, though. That's a good question.
But that's all my own theological nerddom.
I promise I'll get to it. But I want to get my last little segment in real quick before we're starting.
Here we go.
All right.
Here we go. This is the last timed one. After that, we can have more of a free flow. Here we go.
All right, Numbers 23:19 says that God is not human that he should lie, not a human being that he should change his mind. Does he speak not then act? Does he promise and not fulfill? So there's so much in there that already debunks Christianity. Jesus is a man, period. He died. If he didn't die and have blood, then he wasn't a man. So and changing his mind is you're talking about fulfilling the Torah and making it part of natural law. That's God changing his mind, because he didn't tell anyone in the Old Testament he was going to do that. He didn't tell anyone in the Old Testament about his son at all. He doesn't mention Jesus. So that's God changing his mind. That's directly twisting and making this completely illogical by the definition of the word logical that we agreed on. This makes the whole thing illogical. So let's get into the text then. So why would you trust sources that there's only 7 authentic epistles of Paul and the rest are written by some pseudonym? For James, for example, James is supposed to be the brother of the Lord, James the Just. Well, according to Josephus, he dies by getting stoned to death. According to another church father, he gets thrown down a top of a building. How did he die? Which one is it? I don't know. You tell me. And his epistles written to the 12 tribes dispersed. He supposedly died in 62 AD. The tribes weren't dispersed till 70 AD. So who wrote James? I don't know. The whole thing becomes completely illogical. And as far as what you asked me about the Old Testament and the New Testament, about the Messiah not coming, if the fulfillments of the messianic prophecies are not fulfilled, the Messiah never came. It doesn't matter if he says he's going to come back. The 1,000-year reign of Satan being chained up has been done. In fact, in the year 1000, Pope Sylvester II came out and said, "This is it. This is the end times, guys. This is it." Everyone went crazy for 30 years, and nothing happened, because it's never going to happen, because Christianity's false.
All right, that's it. Pope Sylvester II was also purported to have said right afterwards, "Suffer and succotash." But anyway,
you were waiting for you were just waiting for that joke. Anyways.
Just imagine Sylvester the Cat in the Hat. Anyway,
Yeah.
so this
Catholic's final segment.
Yes.
And answer why Jesus is a false prophet Messiah.
Sure.
So
we've done 3 segments so far, and we can't even make one inference that says therefore Christianity is false. In fact, everything suggested Niels assumes it.
I thought you don't understand.
Are we going to keep him interrupting? So the point is that I think this is a miserable failure. I mean, if all of those arguments are non sequitur and there aren't even arguments, then what are we even doing here? So I would say that's a miserable failure. Now, God doesn't lie. This is an interesting passage because now again, I'm just stuck here explaining single passages, which is basically, instead of Neil making an argument, he's just asking me to help him exegete passages. I'm happy to do that, but that has nothing to do with Christianity being illogical. But I'll do that, fine. So the one thing about Numbers, I'll do systematic theology for him, is that God isn't a man that he should lie. We agree with that. God isn't a man that he should lie, and God never lied. And at that time, God wasn't ever incarnated. So I guess that statement makes sense. I don't see what the problem there is. Jesus is a man, obviously. Now, James the Just, how did he die?
What about changing his mind? You didn't get to that part. You skipped that part.
Well, hold on. Let him finish.
Does God change his mind? Well, God doesn't have a mind, so how can he change his mind? What does that mean? God doesn't have multiplicity of thoughts. That's not our view. So you're just making stuff up there. So obviously God never changes his mind, because God doesn't have a mind. How could he change what he doesn't have? Now, the important part here is James the Just. How did he die? I don't see what makes the question of a legitimate historical disagreement between between some sources. What here would be the inference, therefore Christianity is illogical? That's just, there's none. But again, he's asking me to help him out, and I'll be happy to. I don't know which one is more reliable. It seems like Josephus has a bunch of things going on. The other thing is pseudepigrapha. No argument was given why pseudepigrapha can't be inspired. All that's required for inspiration is that it carry a theological message sanctioned by God in its entirety. That's all that's required for inspiration. It being written by James is not required. I do believe it was written by James, but I don't have to affirm that in order to argue that it is inspired. So 3 segments went by, and none of these things can be taken together, and we can't make a single inference that Christianity is illogical. So what we've had here is Neil basically asking me to help him out with systematic theology, Neil asking me to help him out with exegesis, which I'm happy to do, but it has had absolutely nothing to do with the debate topic or him, explaining what his method is supposed to be, other than asking, okay, there's tough questions in systematic theology, why don't you help me out? I mean, Neil, if you wanted to, you could have just invited me and asked me, help me out. I need your help, and I'd have been happy to help you and educate you. That's no problem. Go ahead.
Okay. All right. So before your response, I just want to make an announcement.
That was brutal.
All the people who are new here, don't forget to become members of the BTR Discord. I just posted the link in the chat. So there we go. Anyway, Neil, go for it.
Neil's about to gnaw his chain off right now.
When you say that God doesn't have a mind, therefore he can't change his mind. So when he gives the law, and he has specific things that he does not want the Israelites to do, and then the Messiah comes, he's supposed to fulfill this. He's supposed to unite the tribes. He's supposed to usher kingdom on earth, Olam Haba, the world to come. And that doesn't happen. And instead, the tribes are dispersed, Jerusalem falls, and the law is completely abolished. That's what I mean by changing his mind and not fulfilling his promises. That's what I mean by that. That's a very clear thing. If you can't understand that, that's not my fault.
Well, I wanted to ask though. Mm-hmm. Well, I wanted to get back. Well, the questions I had two. One was about Jesus not fulfilling the covenant, but also about Thomism versus Duns Scotus. But no, what do you mean specifically, Canadian Catholic, by God does not have a mind within the context of Catholicism in particular? Well, do you mean that he doesn't have a sort of a mortal sense of cognition?
Neil confuses laws for humans with God changing his mind. The fact that laws change for humans and ideas change for humans doesn't mean that God is changing his mind. Of course, God can only change his mind if God never actually foresaw what was going to happen. But if you just want to stick with the Bible, it's pretty clear that God always foresaw this happening. I mean, if you go to Psalm 138, I believe it is, 139, in fact, in the English versions, it's clear that God is supposed to be omniscient. So if God is omniscient, he couldn't, in principle, have changed his mind. There is no change going on there. All that happens is developments for us humans, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with those kinds of developments, right? I mean, I haven't seen any argument given or anything semblance of an argument. It's just pretty much I wasn't done. Just petulant complaints of him being unable to understand complicated things in systematic theology. And I'm happy to help you out if that's what you're doing, but I thought this was supposed to be a debate about the logic of Christianity.
Let me ask you, Neil, though, what do you mean specifically by Christ is you're saying that the falseness of Christ is that he does not complete the Old Testament covenant? Or
well, yeah, the Old Testament, if you read the Old Testament front to back, every word of it, not just little passages that you think are very Christian and look at this, Isaiah 53, the suffering servant, which is about the Israelites. But anyways, if you read the whole thing in its full context, it's all about the law. The law is perfect. When the Israelites follow the law, life is good. When the Israelites don't follow the law, they get sacked by the Assyrians. That is the whole message of the book. It doesn't mean that some Messiah has to come along and tell the Israelites that you're actually the sons of the devil.
But is it possible for that law to only have existed at that time specifically for them, not because God changed his mind, but
the
because
they squandered the deal too? I think that's why God said
well,
his only
do
son.
you remember that passage from Last Temptation of Christ where Jesus said...
Don't ever bring that up in front of my presence ever again. No, go ahead. It was in terms of cinematography, it was a very well done movie. It's just that it was Martin Scorsese as an Italian Catholic getting over his own neurosis towards the Italian Catholic Church.
You remember that snake with the breasts? Oh, Jesus. Okay, anyway.
When you say the Israelites squandered the deal, I mean, that is like saying that God, who chose Jacob to make him Israel, right? He could have known this ahead of time. He's omniscient. He's all-knowing.
Mm-hmm. Right?
Well, so maybe he lied to him.
That would mean that he is the one who's failing. He chose Israel, and he failed. So therefore, he had to go to the...
Unless he knew that they were going to fail, and it's all part of God's plan.
Probably.
That's just so illogical, though. That's the whole point.
Then God could be like a trickster entity. Then we could say God is the trickster entity that makes something, apparent for some people, but then takes it away from them later on.
Lev, we're going to bring up a Last Temptation of Christ?
Yes, so with the Last Temptation of Christ, I was just going to say that Jesus, played by the great Willem Dafoe.
Willem Dafoe?
Yes, said that now people are ready for something new. When he was, I believe, in the temple, and they were castigating what he was doing. So that was his argument, that the old law was the old law, but now people are ready for something new.
Yeah, and if you read the book,
you used the most heretical film ever made, Lev, to make that point. The Christ of people were ready for something new.
Well, that's the funny part about that is the Old Testament addresses these type of things. I mean, if you accept Maccabees as historical, maybe it's not divinely inspired, maybe it's not part of the Tanakh, but it talks about having people come into Israel and trying to change things and trying to tweak things, and the Maccabees revolting against that and saying, no, we're sticking to the law purely, no statues, no nothing. That's the point.
And there is a comment from Danzo, which I would like for you guys to address. So Danzo says, it's impossible for Israel to squander the deal. God promises several times that he will never forsake Israel no matter what they do. Can we get a biblical certification on what is being said here? Canadian Catholic.
Yes, Danzo is absolutely right, and this is why Paul is clear. Israel will never falter, because the new Israel is the Christian church. In fact, that's the Catholic teaching, that Israel is the Christian church, and therefore Israel will never falter.
See, Lev? See? See? That's how we got around it, baby!
So God conquered his own people and made them into dispersed throughout the world, just to have a new religion come in and completely flip everything on its head, turn God into three people.
So, just a second. Are we going to be addressing what he said previously about the prophecies and the Messiah, or no?
Sure.
Yeah. Before we get into the fulfillment, let's do that before, because I have a question for Neil as well. So go ahead.
Yeah, so the fulfillments of things are, again, as usual, Neil is bad. Now, the other point is, I apologize, sorry. So, a couple of things here that need to be said. Well, first of all, when Neil talks about historicity, he's completely missing everything. Like, when the New Testament and other things are historical, they're historical in the sense that Plutarch is historical. They're historical in the sense that Herodotus is historical. They're not historical in the sense that Washington Post articles are. More importantly, the dying and rising. Well, there's two things to be said. First of all, interpretations of prophecies were often esoteric. This is what people like Neil don't mention. The prophecies were supposed to be esoterically fulfilled. Be it as it may, Talmud's Sanhedrin 98. 98b and 93b both see the suffering servant as referring to a Messiah. Yes, unfortunately, that's true. And by the way, if Neil had actually asked Richard Carrier about this, who we both hosted, he has hosted me, he would have enlightened him and taught him that that's the case, but he failed to do that. So yes, the Talmud.
Say that again.
Yeah, the Talmud 9. Actually, this is from Carrier's article. I'm just literally.
But wait, so Kenny, Kathy, you were saying that in terms of just Talmudic, or like, let's say, post Second Temple rabbinical Judaism, these truths were supposed to be allotted esoterically.
Well, not. So what I'm saying is that a lot of understanding of prophecies in the New Testament is with double meaning. So the thing is that what people like Neil do is they'll only take what the author at the time meant or was referring to,
right,
with immediate circumstances, right? So for example, they'll take about stuff like virgin conceiving, or the young woman, and this refers to Hezekiah in the immediate context. And the answer is, well, that's not how the early Jews saw this, right? They of course saw the ability to reinterpret prophecies, right? Which is what I call.
I agree with that. It doesn't mean that Christianity.
Okay. Yeah, I wasn't that for sure. But the other point was that yes, the Talmudic view is that the Isaiah chapter 53 is indeed referring to a suffering Messiah. And it's that 93 says that the Messiah would suffer, and 98 actually, as far as I know, confirms that it's referring to specifically.
But you're saying that within the context of Thomistic divine simplicity and so forth.
Yeah, I never brought up divine simplicity here.
Oh, okay, no, but I mean in general, you're saying that is in contradiction to, let's say, rabbinical traditions of exegesis, interpretation, esoteric revealing, and so forth.
No,
you're saying that
I didn't say anything of the sort. All I'm saying is that when people are saying that Jesus did not fulfill prophecy or something, they're often applying very stringent conditions, where, for example, the interpretation can never be esoteric, whereas all the evidence suggests that's how Jews saw their interpretations all the time. But more importantly, there's a bunch of interpretations that there's a bunch of things that Jesus did fulfill. In fact, if you want to look at the Talmudic understanding of Isaiah 53. It's not referring to Israel there. It is referring to Messiah. But more importantly, it can be both. It can refer. That's the point of the esoteric interpretation, as Matthew and others understand it.
Gnostic, what was that element that you talked about earlier on regarding the Passover lamb or ram and some mix-up that you were referring to there? With
Well, that's actually a good question, because I was just going to say to Canadian Catholic, I don't disagree that the writers of the New Testament are taking messianic prophecies from the Old Testament and repurposing them for Jesus. That's fine. That doesn't mean that. That's not. There's nothing that's like.
Are we going to get to the reason?
Let me make my point, right? Like I cut you off. Now you cut me off. I guess we're even now. So yeah, there's nothing that's impressive about that at all. You got this guy Jesus, he gets killed as a crucifixion. How do we make this? He fails. Okay, doesn't usher in the kingdom of heaven. The 12 tribes aren't united. So how do we repurpose this to make him the Messiah? Oh, here's Isaiah 53. That's perfect. They're suffering. They're getting sacked by the Assyrians. We repurpose that for Jesus. There's nothing that's impressive about that at all. Now, with that being said.
But Christendom did unite, Neil. I thought that's not the problem.
Christendom didn't unite. What do you mean? How do you figure? There's 1,000 sects of Christianity right now, and they all think the other
No. But that was because of heretical infiltrating.
Exactly. So they're not united.
Wait, so how is the setup?
But they're not real Christians, Neil.
Wait, hold on. One at a time, everybody. One at a time. Canadian Catholic.
So are the moderators supposed to debate too, or is it me and Neil?
So in the beginning it was Gnostic and you, but now I think we're adding a little bit of salt and pepper to the mix.
They could jump in. It's fine. I lost my thought.
No, I had no problem. I just didn't know the rules.
No, I want to make sure, Gnostic, you go over the Passover Seder thing in detail.
That's what it was. Yeah. Okay, so you reminded me. So with that being said, they're taking all this stuff from the Old Testament and repurposing for Jesus. And one of those things is on Passover, which, by the way, hold on, don't nod your head. I didn't say anything yet. How do you know what I'm going to say? How do you know? So Passover, right? By the way, there's no historical anything of saying that there's being tribes by the Sanhedrin being done on Passover. They didn't do any work on Passover. So that didn't happen. But anyway, let's say it did. They're taking they're taking two prisoners and saying, we're going to let one go and we're going to kill the other one. Now, anyone who knows the Torah or anything about Deuteronomy or Numbers or Leviticus will tell. It's actually from Leviticus. They'll tell you that there is on Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year for the Jews. They take one goat and another goat and slaughter one to sacrifice for your sins. Literally, this is a sin offering, it's atonement, and let the other one free. So obviously, what they're doing is it's a metaphor for the Yom Kippur. Why they put it on Passover, I don't know, because they're a bunch of dumb idiots that are writing in Greek that don't know they're not real Jews. So this is what they're doing. So it's a wrong interpretation of Yom Kippur being applied to Passover, and it didn't happen. It's not historical, which is the definition of illogical. You're taking something that means something else and applying it to Passover.
Canadian Catholic respond?
Yeah, so the first thing is when he talks about repurposing, he says that this is the Gospels doing this. And I'm going to be honest, this isn't just the Gospels doing it. This is what Jews do. This is what the Talmud does. This is the proper practice, right? That's my point. If you look at the Sanhedrin, as I said, you can see these things. Now, the other point is, to be honest, I'm not even sure what the point was supposed to be. His point is that people did not try other people on the Passover. I mean, if you want to really go into divergent dates for the Passover, we're stuck with the same problem as I've said, that no inference can be made from, I guess, accounts from the Bible that are at odds with each other. We can't go from there to say that they aren't inspired, because for all we know, that might convey different messages in different ways. In fact, like, as I've explained, what is wrong with the idea that, for example, John puts Jesus' death on a different day to make a theological point that he is the lamb that's going to be slaughtered? What is illogical about that? Right?
It's not so much, sorry for me to cut in here, but it's not so much, I think, about putting a different date as much as can we establish certain things were just not done. And even if you could say in the Talmud there's lots of argumentations between the rabbis, there are still certain things that we could say this is set in stone. This is exactly how it's done. So in relation to what Neil was talking about, can we establish certain things about about Passover, for example, and about the when you can try people and so on and so forth.
I don't know what that's supposed to be. I mean,
Well, okay, I'll say this. Fine. If you want to interpret the Bible like that and just say maybe it's not historical, but we can interpret it this way. I'm totally fine with that.
biblical books are
But then
historic.
what's the difference between that and Greek mythology?
So the point is that the Bible is a collection of books. Some books are going to be historical, some books are going to be allegorical, some books are going to be in between, right? The point of the Bible isn't its accuracy in history. The reason we profess the Bible is because it leads the church to all truth. That's the reason. And Greek mythology doesn't do that. Now, more importantly, the books that are historical, like the Gospels, are historical in the sense that Plutarch is historical, and in the sense that Herodotus is historical. They're not historical in the sense that in the way we practice history today, which developed in the 19th century. The fact that I need to explain this to you isn't good, but more importantly, I'm still waiting for the point at which we can say.
Well, hold on. Just what I get this means, and I'm a little bit new to a lot of these things here, so please pardon me. But if I understand this correctly, what you're saying is that certain things in the Bible, however many of them, can just be falsifications, can just be things that are put in there, mythologies that have no bearing on actual historical fact, that they could have just been some mythology that was crammed in there, but that's not the point.
So yeah, no, not mythology in the sense that you're using. Myth and scholarly views have different definition, but more importantly, the idea that all of the Bible is supposed to be history in the literal sense isn't something that any serious Christian view.
Okay, but if it's not history in the literal sense, how do you define that? If it's not history, what is it other than mythology then? Like, what would be the in-between points between history and mythology?
So you're using the word mythology to refer to something that fictional.
Yes.
And history and fiction aren't dichotomies. This is bullshit that people made up. And I try to educate people, and they're continuing to make up this. And, it's called historical illiteracy. I try to educate people, but there is no educating. So they just embarrass themselves over and over. And I'm like, okay, if you want to embarrass yourself, embarrass yourself. So there's multiple genres that exist, right? There are some genres that are novellas. There are some genres that are novels. There is historical fiction. And then there are legends. And then there's a myth in the scholarly definition. And then there's the mythology in the colloquial definition. In the colloquial definition, mythology means made up story. In the normal sense, myth refers to a lasting, I don't know how to phrase this basically, I mean, off the top of my head, but basically a lasting narrative. Now, the reason we hold to the Bible, which of course is historical in certain ways and in certain books and isn't in others, isn't because of its historicity or lack of it, but because it guides the church to all the truth. That's the point, right? That's why.
Yeah.
But the mythology.
What is that truth?
I mean, the truth of the Christian faith, I suppose.
What is that? If we don't know what's historical and what's the point? What's the point of Jesus dying for our sins if Adam?
What's the point of anything? Like, I don't know. It seems Gnostic. It seems that you have to reify the truth of the Old Testament and of the rabbinical tradition in order to make your point against Christianity.
No, but I want to get a little bit deeper on the question that I was asking earlier. I know I don't want to cut you off, Gnostic. I want you to get back to that very important question of what is, the point of all of this. But just to get back to what Canadian Catholic was saying, if we're talking about mythology, then I want to separate the kind of mythology that's this lasting thing that could have been true, and specifically talk about the kind of mythology, or you could call it whatever you want, basically something that is fiction, or something that we have no way of verifying is not fiction. We could be kind of wishy-washy about it, say like, well, we don't know whether there was a Noah, or we don't know whether there was so on and so forth. I think what Gnostic was bringing up in the beginning, one second please, I think what Gnostic was bringing up in the beginning with all these examples is how can we actually logically say that these characters that existed, which may be lasting myths that could have happened and could have not happened, how can we say that they 100% happened?
When you go back, when you're trying to prop up this argument against Christianity, you go back to supporting claims from the Old Testament, from the rabbinical tradition, and so forth. So it's like, well, what if they were true, or what if they're inaccurate? Then what if the older Sumerian texts are inaccurate? It's like the problem is that when you're viewing things through this sort of logical positivist lens of historicity, then you can just keep going back and saying, well, that's contradictory. Then you're not arriving at an eternal truth. That's my problem.
I disagree. You can arrive at the eternal truth, but that doesn't mean that the specific things happen in the way that they were written to happen. I don't see what one has to do with the other.
Catholic, what we're saying is that when it comes to the mythopoetics of certain parts of the Bible, not all of them, a lot of them are historically accurate. It's that it supports the grand total truth and narrative of Christianity as a guide for the faithful.
So what? It doesn't mean that those things were true, and it doesn't mean that the specific things that happen in Christianity as far as the prophecies are true either. They could be going towards a universal truth of like love and things of that nature, sure.
Yeah, but that's the problem. You're purposefully inflicting a very narrow definition of truth as historical.
But then Christians.
Hold on, let me say something.
Okay. What about? We don't know exactly that Julius Caesar crucified those sailors, did we?
No, but they're not claiming
Julius Caesar wasn't the emperor of Rome. He was just some fucking guy. Right?
Julius Caesar was black. Julius Caesar was black.
He was a black woman, exactly.
Julius Caesar's not claiming that you have to believe in him to have eternal life.
Yes, he did.
No, he didn't.
The imperial cult of the Roman emperor?
Yeah, that's not just Julius Caesar. That's Zeus.
No, but I'm saying in general, it's the truth that the Roman emperor was seen as a divine figure that guides the truth of the Roman Empire.
Well, why not? Why shouldn't we believe in him then? But here, the big question. The big question is this: the reason why I ask, what is the truth of? Why is Christianity the truth of the faithful? When the Old Testament says one thing, don't eat pork, follow the Sabbath, and the New Testament says another thing, then how is that not illogical in the sense that which one am I supposed to follow? The one in Hebrew or the one in Greek?
King Catholic, go ahead.
Right. So what you're doing right now is asking questions pretty much that boils down to how do we do systematic theology? That's a great question, but you came here to argue that Christianity is illogical, not to ask
illogical. You shouldn't have to ask that question. And you can answer that and whatever.
What argument is there that? So what your argument is if Christianity is logical, there would be no need for systematic theology. Right. What evidence do you have for that argument or that assertion?
Because if something's true, it doesn't have to be defined in a certain way by a certain definition, by a certain sect, by a certain denomination, within a certain lens.
What evidence do you have that the fact that there is necessity of systematic theology means that Christianity is illogical? What evidence do you have for this?
Because the average person that's born into this world has no way of knowing that the Orthodox is true, that Islam is true, that the Mormons are true. There's no way of knowing. They're all claiming to have the truth, and none of them can prove it.
So that's relativism, but I'm not talking about that. I'm pressing you to answer my question. Your point is,
if you had a God that cares and only wants you to believe in this one thing, all he has to do is let it be known. Write it on the moon. That's why it's illogical, because we don't have any response from a God who claims to only want one thing, and that's worship. He's claiming this, but where do we see this?
Did God divinely inspire Martin Luther?
I don't think so.
Well, that's what I mean. You're saying that because the church, the church itself is divided. It's a certain
Protestants would say yes, though. Protestants would say, yeah, Martin Luther saved Christianity. He'll say whatever. I don't know, but I'm just saying.
Yeah.
How do you? When you have, I'm bringing this back to this point because this is why it's so important. When you have the Old Testament, when the New Testament's claiming to fulfill the Old, Jesus is supposed to be the Messiah. The Messiah is a concept brought about from the Jews in the Old Testament. So if you're going to say that you're going to fulfill the Old Testament, it should have a logical line all the way through. It shouldn't have to be changed and turned on its head and then contradicts each other. That's why I said illogical. It's illogical. Right? I mean, you got one book saying, don't eat pork, follow the Sabbath. You got the other one saying, oh, just believe in the Son who died for your sins. That's completely contradictory to each other. They have two different, and I mean, that makes it illogical in itself, right there.
Canadian Catholic.
Yeah, so I don't know what to say. I mean, I still can't see anything that would demonstrate that Christianity is illogical, other than to see a bunch of things that confuses Neil. And I don't think anybody argued that in Christianity there wouldn't be things that would confuse you. That's not the problem.
Oh, there's a lot of people that are confused about it, so I guess God's not doing his job.
There's
Well,
no
let's
argument.
let's
Sure.
focus on something that I was talking about before, just because you know me, how I like to do these things sometimes. I want to focus in on a particular issue and beat that horse to death. So the issue that I want to focus on, again, is what Neil talked about before relating to the Passover. Please repeat just once again what you said as far as when are people not supposed to be executed, or did you say just tried for murder?
Well, the whole point of that was when you look at the narrative of Jesus and Barabbas, there's clearly it's clearly a metaphor of the Yom Kippur, of two goats, one getting let free, and one of them being slaughtered for the sins of all the people of Israel. Jesus was that one. Barnabas was one who was let free. And it doesn't get any closer than that. I've heard Michael O'Connor try to argue that because the goat gets let out outside of the city, therefore it's not the same. Come on, that's ridiculous. This is clearly a narrative borrowing from Yom Kippur, which is a totally different time of the year, by the way.
But can we agree on that? Can we agree that this narrative is borrowed from Yom Kippur?
Do you agree, Canadian Catholic?
I mean, I'm not sufficiently familiar with the issue to either agree or disagree.
Well, Leviticus 16. Let's look at the whole text, right? Do we see parts of the text that are borrowing from parts of the Old Testament? Joseph was the most favorable son out of all of the 12 brothers, and he was sold by Judas for 20 shekels. Jesus gets sold by Judah, which also means Judas, by the way, for 30 shekels. So we see a reflection there.
There's many parts like
there's
that.
so many of those. So that's
how does that contradict the truth of Christianity by saying that there's parallels with the Old Testament?
Doesn't. The point I'm trying to make is clearly the Yom Kippur event is being portrayed in Jesus' trial.
And
so
there's many differences though as well.
Right, but so here's my point. Let me nail it home right now.
All right.
You have a metaphor from the Old Testament being shown in the New as the trial, right? And you also have no historical evidence of any of these trials ever taking place on Passover. There's never any other time in history where you have one person getting let go on Passover, another person being killed on Passover. It doesn't happen. So which one is it? Is it this is just a narrative being put into the Bible to explain why Jesus got killed? That's what I think.
Well, Neil, I'm very interested in the points you're pursuing, but all you're saying is here are interesting parts to think about. I'm asking you, at what point do we say this, and therefore Christianity is logical? What you're saying is these are interesting parts. I agree with that. These are interesting parts, maybe interesting metaphors, maybe interesting points. But I want you to get to the point of the debate, which is
before we're talking about whether something's interesting or not interesting, I want to define whether or not Neil is correct or incorrect about those parts. Then we can get to the fruit of the tree over here.
Like before that, I just don't see the logic of.
No, but one thing that Neil said, I'll give you an example, Gio. One thing that Neil said right now is that on Passover, you do not do any execution. Now, first of all, how do we know that the death of Jesus was on Passover? That's number one. Well, because Good Friday, that was supposed to be when Jesus died, right?
Yeah.
Well, Good Friday, that's a Friday. That's not... well, when is Passover? Hold on. Is that on Friday?
You don't know when Passover.
This is why I'm always surprised by people pointing out that I'm a small. Yes, exactly.
Passover lasts for 7 to 8 days, so it would have been It would have been within that week. Yes.
Okay. Why do we know? Well, how do we know it was within that week and it wasn't just some other?
No, actually, the Bible itself has two different, and I'm not exactly sure which one it is. One of them has them is happening on Passover Eve. The other one says on Passover.
Okay, so Canadian Catholic, I know that you may say, well, what's the point of all this? But can you say right now that we're all in agreement that the death of Jesus, before the resurrection, took place during Passover? Can we all agree on that? And if no, why not?
So Jesus died around the Passover. As we know, there is a difference between the Gospel of John and the Gospel of Mark as to where Jesus died, when exactly Jesus died. All are agreed that Jesus died during the Passover. This is scholarly consensus with almost like very few deviations at all. The question is, what about the discrepancy? And as it happens, discrepancy is very nice and very easily accounted for, because John places the death of Jesus at the day, I think it's a Saturday. I can't remember. Is it Thursday? When the lambs were getting slaughtered. To make the point, theological point, that Jesus is the lamb that's about to be slaughtered. Very, very deep theological meaning here. So I guess that's the difference, but it's pretty much scholarly consensus that Mark and Luke and Matthew probably have it right. As far as historical details goes, of course, John also has it right by our lights, because Jesus is that lamb which is going to be sacrificed for the world.
So before we get to the lamb, I know, Gnostic, you're very excited about the lamb, but before we feast on that lamb, I want to get to the other part of this, which is, if we are all in agreement that this took place around Passover, are we also all in agreement that you are not, according to Jewish tradition, you are not allowed to have any execution during the time of Passover? Can we all agree on that?
Yeah, like Alpine is saying, Alex Alpine, that's why they rushed it. The execution and burial could take place before the Pashash Shabbat. So, am I saying that right?
Yeah.
But if it's still during Passover, then it wouldn't matter, right? This is what I'm trying to establish here. If it's not during Passover, then fine. But if it's during Passover, how can this happen? That's what I'm not clear about here.
Well, I mean, it didn't. It couldn't have. It probably wouldn't have happened if this is a historical event, which I'm willing to agree it was. Probably happened right before. Probably right.
Okay, but Canadian Catholic, do you see that something's not logical here? If it happened during Passover, it wouldn't be allowed to happen.
So I don't see anything being illogical in here. What I do see is that Neil is pointing out that the historical record can help us be better in our systematic theology of reconciling Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John to get to the truth of it. I see that part. I don't see where the illogicality comes in.
Well, do you agree that during the time of Passover, you are not allowed to execute anybody?
I think the Bible states so, yeah.
It does.
Then how the heaven could they execute Jesus Christ during Passover, which we all agreed was the time that he was executed?
Well, at least if you trust the Gospels, at least some of the Gospels here, he could have been executed just before the Passover.
And I'm fine.
But that's not okay. You're fine with that, but just to be clear, that is not. That was not the earlier consensus. Just to be clear, that was not the earlier consensus that you made, Canadian Catholic, when you did say
consensus is that Jesus did that on a Friday.
Whatever. I mean, it's not. This is not the end all be all when it comes to this.
Okay.
So nothing you've given is either.
What do you mean? Okay, I literally told you. I literally laid out for you. The Old Testament is all about the law. It's all about the commandments that God gave. God does not change his mind. He's not a man that changes his mind. Okay, so where's the fulfillment of that? Where are the 12 tribes of Israel? Where's the kingdom of heaven on earth? Where's the Messiah beating the Romans? Where is the law being fulfilled? Instead,
wait.
You have a new church that say you can eat what you want. You can do whatever you want. Who cares? Who cares about the high priest? Who cares about the sons of Zadok, the Sadducees?
We do have high priests. We do have prophetic priests.
Instead, your New Testament, by the way, which claims that Jesus is from the line of Melchizedek, with the order of Melchizedek, which literally means Sadducees. Sadducees are sort of sons of Zadok. So you're taking what the Old Testament is saying, that the sons of Zadok, who are the Levites, are the chosen tribe, who are the only ones that mess with the temple, the only ones that burn the incense, the only ones that are going to the Holy. And then you're saying, hold on, let me finish this. And then you're saying, forget all that. Just ignore all that stuff. That means nothing now. It's all about the Messiah, who, by the way, was never supposed to be God himself. Messiah means anointed. He's God's anointed. He's God's chosen one. He's not God. So this eternal logos thing, why didn't anyone get the memo about that? Why didn't Moses get told, by the way, my son, the eternal logos, you need to tell Israel about him because he's coming one day. get everybody ready, prepare for the Lord.
Because Moses was a need to know basis, and he didn't need to know.
More importantly, so
That's illogical.
But wait, you're saying that every prophet should have foretold knowledge of every future prophet? Why?
No, I'm saying when Moses was given the law, when he was giving the commandments,
for them,
he should know that this is all about the Messiah. It's not about the law. The New Testament's saying, forget about the law. The law is corruptible. The law is dumb. It's all about the Messiah. It's all about the blood of Jesus. That's illogical because they contradict each other. You can't have both. It's either the law is perfect or Jesus is perfect. It's one or the other.
Well, King and Kathy, you respond to that, and then I have something.
Yeah. So the answer of Israel not continuing or the kingdom of God not coming is something that's not true by our light. As I've explained, if you read Paul carefully, sacrifices are ongoing, and we still have a priest. The sacrifice is called the Mass, and the high priest is called the Pope, right?
But it's not on the Sabbath. You profane the Sabbath, one of the 10 Commandments.
Let me finish. Right. I've explained to you that the 10 Commandments we keep aren't for the Torah, but for their relevance to the natural law. That's what's argued by Duns Scotus, as I've already explained to you, right? That's the point. So as far as natural law goes, this Sunday replacing Sabbath is not a problem. Well, what's the problem there? I mean, it's the new Sabbath, right? What's wrong with a new Sabbath and a new Israel? Nothing has been given here other than the fact that, older Jews didn't do it. Well, we do it things the new way. That's why we have the New Testament, right? So I haven't seen anything in response to this that Israel continues. And continual sacrifices continue. It's that instead of a lamb, it's the eternal lamb that's being represented in the sacrifice of the Mass.
But does that mean though? Oh, sorry. Go on.
I wasn't done. Right. So no engagement is done here with the new Israel thing of Paul. Nothing. It's just annoying. And I'm gonna say again, we are 1 hour or so, and I'm waiting to hear what the inference is, and I haven't gotten it. I've just gotten a bunch of nothing. Just why?
No, but just to be clear, just rewinding a little bit back when Neil was talking about how could God change his mind, what ended up happening with the promise, the covenant with Abraham for these specific things to be set in motion? Are we then saying that God lied to Abraham if he knew that the covenant was going to be broken? Then when he said that this is the way it's done,
no, covenant is not broken. Abraham's children continue to be blessed.
Do you follow the Sabbath?
I follow the real Sabbath. Yeah.
The Sabbath means Saturday. That's what the word Sabbath means.
So to answer Lev, the question was. The answer is that the promise to Abraham isn't broken. Abraham's seed continues to thrive. The Abraham seed, though, is the real new Israel, which is the Christian church. That's the point that Paul is.
Well, if you're talking about that being part of the promise, the other part of the promise, from what I understand, would be Saturday being the Sabbath day, right? That was something that
literally is the
God told.
The 7th day of the week.
That was something that was established back then. So if that was established by God back then, that meant that he would have that he lied, that is not the Sabbath, that was a temporary Sabbath. So, why that doesn't make that much sense to me. Why would there be
Ezekiel 20:20, keep my Sabbath holy, that they may be a sign between us, that you may know that I am the Lord your God. Does that say change my Sabbath to Sunday? Does it say that?
So
that's why it's illogical. That's why I'm right. I can define logic. I can define it this way. It's illogical.
Let me hit you with some logic.
Nobody was given the memo that this all is going to change when the Messiah comes.
Okay, let me answer. Okay, respond to this, King Cap. Then I have something.
Right. So the issue of Sabbath is there is an underlying message of the Sabbath, and then there is the day. The underlying message stays, and the day changes. Right. I mean, and the other point is that I don't understand what the big issue is. I mean, Christians value Saturday as much. The point is we don't keep the Torah, and we don't have to keep the Torah because we are Christians. We keep the spiritual Torah, right? We don't have to keep the literal Torah because that's not necessary for us. Now, when you're saying nobody was given the memo, yes, they were given the memo. His name is Paul. That's a giant memo, by the way. No. 7 authentic memos according to scholars. But you don't want to accept those memos. You just define it. I wasn't done. So you define memos in such a way that they can't even be given. So that's just nonsense, right?
No, because it's clearly Leviticus, Numbers, all these books, Deuteronomy, the any message given by God would be given to a Levite priest, not to some random guy in Tarsus who's writing in Greek.
Yeah, so we have priesthood. We still have priests.
But a Levite priest never got the message that Jesus the Messiah is coming. They should have. If you're a logical God wants to make your message known.
No, but that's the point. But the point is universal salvation. Why would a member of the priest class be receiving it as opposed to any other layperson?
There's examples in the Old Testament of people getting salvation without having to ask Jesus.
I think, Neil, what I wanted to say,
King Manasseh was the worst.
Oh yeah, let's let Gio go. Gio, I know you had
the problem is, I think that you can only define Christianity as illogical based on this reification of the older Jewish view that it could only fulfill the covenant for the Israelites. Would it not logically make sense that the truth of our Lord shall be spread to all man and all women, I guess?
I guess.
Isn't it true that it necessitated a universal message of salvation as opposed to just being butthurt over I guess we're not the chosen people anymore? Like, that's my point. I think that the universality of the message of God necessitates that shift.
Wouldn't that define illogical when you have the chosen people who become not the chosen people anymore? That's illogical.
But they were only temporarily supposed to be the chosen people. They were a foil for something greater than themselves.
So
that doesn't sound logical.
The Israelites are still the chosen people. The Israelites are the chosen people, right?
Right.
The Israelites are.
Living ghettos for 2,000 years.
I wasn't done. The question is, what is Israel, right? And the answer in the Old Testament would be, I guess, less inclusive than the answer is in the New Testament. But that doesn't change the fact that Israel is still the chosen nation, right? I am of the seed of Israel because I'm of the seed of Abraham in Christ. That's the point of Paul. That's the point Paul is making in Romans and in Galatians, right? If you were able to read this and do systematic theology, you would know. And you can always ask me for help, Neil. I'm happy to help you out.
Let me ask you this: Did the Mormons have the New Covenant? Are they right? Are they right or wrong?
Of course not.
Okay,
Yeah.
so to quote, Melody in the chat made a good point. God created Mormons so that Christians can know how Jews feel. It's the same thing. You could just say, I gotta.
Listen. If Tovia didn't exist, then Paul would have a need to invent Tovia. He is every single Paul stereotype. I hate to say it.
The reason why I'm saying that is not to be funny, is because it actually is something profound.
No, it's not.
There's a certain way that God gives commandments.
Not at all.
Just give it to anybody having a dream.
Christianity evolved from a Jewish milieu. Everybody in Christianity was a Jew, in line with the Torah and interpreting. Nothing like that can in principle be said about Mormonism. By the way, I am friends with Mr. Tovia Singer. And that's not my saying. Tovia considers me a friend. We've spoken multiple times, and I've hosted him on my channel many times. Well, a couple of times on Discord and on here. And I'm very respectful, but I explained to Tovia that what he preaches is not the same as the Judaism of the Second Temple. Rabbinic Judaism is not the Second Temple. So this idea, that is absolutely true.
But okay, I agree with that.
I wasn't done. So this idea that, Judaism that Tovia and others preach is a modern invention, a Jewish invention.
Yeah.
A Second Temple Jew would not have recognized Tovia's Judaism.
And they would not have recognized the Messiah as Jesus either.
Well, I mean, that's kind of obvious.
They would be even worse. They're following the Torah. That's all they're doing is following the Torah. They're not doing any dialogue like you see in the Talmud where they argue over things. No, they're just saying, what does the Torah say? That's what we do. We don't do anything else. We're never straying from the law. Period.
I should cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
But then I was just watching some American Psycho clips yesterday. But anyway, when it comes to the Saturday question, I don't want to dwell on it too much, but just so I understand, Canadian Catholics' version of this is that God would be able to have the same Sabbath, but be able to switch the days. Is there anything Gnostic in the Torah and the Bible that prevents that switching from occurring?
Well, yeah, he's multiple times telling everybody to keep my Sabbath holy.
No, but my Sabbath could be switched to a different day, could it? Could it not?
Sabbath is the seventh day of the week. It doesn't change to another day. You can't.
Why not? Why can't it be changed?
The seventh day is the seventh day. It's like that's basic math.
Wait, you're talking about the word Sabbath. The word Sabbath means 7.
Yes.
The Canadian Catholic, does the word Sabbath mean 7?
Sabbath, I can speak a little bit of Hebrew. Shabbat is 7. Sabbath. 7th, the 7th.
All right, can we agree on that? Then Sabbath is 7. Do we agree on that,
That's
Canadian
literally
Catholic?
What it means.
No, I need Canadian Catholics' agreement on this. Do you agree on that?
He disagrees.
No, that's not true. The word Shabbat comes from Hebrew. As far as I understand it, it means rest, not anything to do with
It's the
seven.
7th. Sheva is 7. So if you say Shabbat, 7th day. Yeah, it's a day of rest too. That's what the definition of the Sabbath is, but it's based off the 7th day. The word Sheba.
Hold on, I'm gonna look this up.
So looking at Wikipedia, I can't
Look up what the word 7 is in Hebrew.
Okay, so the word Shabbat comes from rest or ceasing from work.
Yeah, that's what it is now. So that's what the 7th day is.
But how is this proof Christianity?
No, well, I don't know. I don't know why you're drilling on this. The Sabbath is the 7th day. Everyone knows that.
So let's see over here.
I think.
Okay,
I think the problem is that
Number
we're getting
7,
in the weeds
ask
and
it-
we're not really
I don't.
talking specifically
No, well,
to
here's an important point,
the
though.
truth of
Seven-
Christianity proper.
Here's an important point, though. 7 means completeness, as in the 7th day that God finished what he started. So that makes sense in terms of the grand narrative of God finishing everything on the seventh day resting, thus people also rest on the 7th day. So Canadian Catholic, wouldn't that mean that Christianity is diverting away from this very universal from Genesis
No.
idea?
Not at all. The answer is that okay. So the answer is that the Sabbath, as it was understood by the Jews, isn't something that we need to keep because it's part of the Torah. What we have to observe is the natural law implications of setting aside one day, which we do.
Bullshit.
Okay, well, I mean, I understand that Neil isn't willing to deal with systematic theology, and that's fine. I'm happy to accommodate that. The point is that if you want education in systematic theology, I'm happy to provide that. But that's not what we're arguing here. We're not arguing, let's educate Neil in systematic theology. That's not what we're arguing.
The whole point of systematic theology is to make your church or your denomination correct and to sort of
Dig it, Chad, yes.
formulate your own.
Now you need education on what systematic theology means.
I don't-
See? We're finding out so many things you need education in. So maybe instead of a debate, what you need is a class. You could have asked.
Hold on. Canadian Catholic, you're straying away from the original question of the 7th day here.
Okay.
No, Gio, I need to get back to the 7th day question here.
No, it's irrelevant. It's irrelevant.
It is not irrelevant.
How is it irrelevant to the logic of Christianity, Lev? Tell me right now, please.
Okay,
Why are we hanging up on this minutia of the 7th day?
I'll tell you why. Because there is this grand narrative of the creation of the world that God rests on the 7th day.
Right.
All of a sudden, the Christians are doing it on the first day of the week, on Sunday. That doesn't make sense.
Blood and eating flesh.
Well, hold on. We're gonna get to the blood and the flesh later, but specifically about.
Not again, Neil.
Hold on.
Please.
Specifically talking about the 7th day. The reason why I don't want to stray as Canadian Catholic, I thought that you were going to answer why exactly it makes sense for the Christians not to keep this within the grand narrative of Genesis and go to Sunday as opposed to Saturday. Because
I'll
that's
explain for the thousandth time because I will explain for the 1000th time because the Sabbath, as kept by Jews, is part of the Torah. We're not obligated by the Torah. We are obligated, of course, to obey the natural law aspects of the Torah. So as far as it is in keeping with the natural law, we will keep that. But as I've explained that, we are the new Israel. We don't have to go back to the old laws.
Okay, but don't call it Sabbath then, right?
And then so the Mormons would say we're the new whatever, and then are they right?
No, can we just agree that it's wrong to call it the Sabbath?
But Neil, you could say that the Branch Davidians were right. You could pick any branch
No, hold on. I just want to be clear. I'm not disagreeing with Canadian Catholic. I just want to make sure.
By the way,
would that not mean?
Davidians are right about the U.S. government, by the way. But
yes. Would that not mean? Would that not mean that we should not call it a Sabbath if it's not on the 7th day? Can we just stop calling it the Sabbath then? Can we call it something else?
Sabbath.
Call what Sabbath?
The day of Sunday, the day of rest for the Christians.
So nobody calls Sunday Sabbath. No one does that.
I was just going to say that.
Okay, there we go. Just making sure.
So that's
that we spent half an hour on an argument that doesn't pertain to the actual truth of Christianity.
No, it does pertain to it because if we're still talking about choosing a day for resting.
I would say we spent the whole show. I would say we've spent the whole show with Neil just wanting a little bit of education on tough topics on systematic theology. So I agree with that.
No, your systematic theology.
Listen, I'm laughing because Neil is my friend, but when you say it, it pisses him off so much.
Well, because when you say systematic theology, you're starting. You're starting.
I predicted that this was going
It's
to be an
almost like
education.
begging the question because you're starting at an illogical place, saying that Jesus fulfilled the scriptures. Therefore, here's my systematic theology. But I'm saying to even get there is an illogical.
Like that. I never said anything like that. And by the way, we're 1 hour in, and you keep saying illogical. I've been asking for an argument, and your point isn't so
I gave it to you. It's just not my fault that you.
Okay, let me press you a bit, Kay and Kath. Let me press you a little bit. So, who is in the chat? Another Gnostic informant, Janny. That by the way, as much as I appreciate donations,
What are they saying?
if we were to release a poll on Twitter, then it would be a different thing. Anyways, the fat Kath is no arguments other than me and Josh are both fat Kaths. Are no arguments other than it's true because it's true. So, in other words, this whole thing you've sort of hand-waved Neil's arguments away by saying that he hasn't given you an actual argument, but let's instead switch gears. Well, no, but let's instead switch gears and
Neil
say that
agrees that nothing he presented here is an argument.
No, I don't.
He said that. Okay.
I told you what the definition of illogical is. I told you why the fulfillment makes it illogical.
So
let me just ask then to switch gears. What would you say, Joshua, is the number one solid truth claim of Christianity within the confines of, let's call it, logical consistency or rationalism or so forth? Like let's say from a natural law perspective, what is the number one thing?
Asking. What are you asking?
I'm asking if we are positing that Christianity is indeed logical, what is the number one argument in your mind that necessitates the logic of the Christian claim of Christ as our Savior, so on and so forth?
So there is no logical contradiction whatsoever that has been or can be derived, as far as I know, in any part of the Nicene Creed, anywhere. Now, of course, Neil made sure to define illogical in a different way, which was some nebulous term, and I even went along with that, but nothing came out of it. It was just a bunch of nonsense. So I predicted that this would come. I predicted that it would be an education session, and I wasn't wrong.
Let's disregard what Neil said. What would you say? Okay, give a definition of logic in this context of Christianity. Then,
logic is a science of proper inference rules and proper reasoning and understanding, and something is logical if it coheres with that. Right. So I don't see why Christianity doesn't cohere with that at all.
Well, because here's why. I'll explain it to you really slowly. The Old Testament. Okay, forget about what happened with Paul in the desert. The Old Testament.
I can't do this.
Hold on, let me finish this. The Old Testament says what it says. It's prophesizing what it wants to. It has an idea of a Messiah, it has an idea of Israel, 12 tribes, heaven, all that stuff given to Moses by God with his own finger on the tablets. And now all of a sudden, you have a New Testament that says something different. That's illogical. It doesn't matter what you think about who's right or who's wrong. The point is that one says one thing and the other says something different, which makes it illogical.
That's called progressive revelation. It's not illogical. It's called revelation progressing.
And you still have to prove that. You still have to show somebody.
Now you're committing the taxicab fallacy because
no, it's not.
Stop. You were giving me an internal critique. You're saying that there's something wrong with there being old and then there being new revelation. And then when we went and said that there's nothing internal, you go out of the external point of view and say, well, there is no proof of that. So
no,
you
because
you can't even do.
No, I didn't go anywhere outside
internal critique.
You would have to show why that lines up with what is being said in the Old Testament. If the New Testament is claiming to fulfill the Old, unless you want to be like a Gnostic, like Marcion, and say forget about the Old Testament, let's just do our own thing, then fine. Then I wouldn't even say Christianity is illogical. It's its own entity at that point. But when you combine the Old Testament with the New, it becomes illogical. Period.
But Christianity kind of is its own entity from Judaism, no?
I'm fine with that. But then you'd have to say that the Old Testament is not right. You would have to admit that there's changes being made, that God changed his mind.
But earlier in the stream, Neil, you've pointed to various instances where there are parables, there are stories, there are leitmotifs
Right.
of within the New Testament that reflect certain elements of the Old Testament.
Yeah.
Because that is the point, in at least in Catholicism and in Orthodoxy.
Exactly. Which is
That
why
the Old Testament has to be viewed through the prism of the New Testament.
Exactly. Which is why.
So would you not say that there are things in the Old Testament that do logically lead up to themes within the New Testament?
No, because you're borrowing. You're taking the new and you're borrowing from the old. The new.
But that's like. But then that's saying that anything could be like that in history.
Yeah. You can't. You could.
And that's why it's so. That's why it's so tough to figure things out in history.
Ovid's Metamorphosis is based off Homer and Hesiod's work. He borrowed from that. Homer didn't prophesize that Ovid was going to come and write this stuff down. That's the same. It's another example of that. Now, for Christianity, yes, they're borrowing concepts from the Old Testament.
But I'm saying you have one standard of truth for Christianity and another standard of truth for every other mythologized account of history.
No, I don't, because the point I'm making is, why would Christianity be the truth of all of theology of believers if it's illogical? It's just like all the other ones I'm saying. I'm putting on the same level.
But wait, on one hand, you're saying that there is elements of the New Testament from that takes or borrows from the Old Testament.
Right.
But you're saying that instead, that is the view, instead of saying that, well, maybe that there are elements within the Old Testament that prophesied future events within the New Testament.
Well, it's easier to write something down based on something that exists than prophesy something.
Right, but here's what I'm.
But then you're predicated. But then again, this is my point. You're reifying the truth of the Old Testament in order to own the Christians.
I like this question. Let me get to this. Right. So what you just said is all true. The New Testament is taking concepts from the Old, and it's borrowing them, and it's making the new. It's repurposing them for Jesus. But, or what that does actually, not I don't want to say but yet. What that does is, now you cannot escape the fact that the New Testament has to be is based on the truth of the Old Testament. It has to fulfill the Old Testament. So therefore, if it's claiming to be the fulfillment of the Old Testament, it has to do that. But when it fails to do that in certain aspects, it makes it illogical, which is the law.
But when something is fulfilled, it reneges on its use. That is the claim. It's saying that those old laws are not useful anymore because the New Testament in Christ fulfilled those covenants.
Not when you have God himself in his own words saying, keep my laws and my commandments, they're perfect.
But those laws changed.
That makes it illogical.
But you're ascribing human causality to God.
No, but then if we're clear, again, I may be repeating myself here, but if we're clear, that means...
But those laws within the New Testament that God supposedly changed, but he actually... Maybe it's... I know it's difficult to believe, but maybe he kind of prophesied it beforehand.
You're saying that those laws have more
of a veracity than the parochial little Israeli tribal bullshit that was in the Old Testament.
But then, Gio, you're saying that God tricked the Jews. Is that right?
To fulfill the purpose, maybe. I don't know. Maybe you guys got tricked. Who knows? No, he didn't trick them. It's that the progression of the Old Testament to the New does make sense. It's just that you're complicating it.
No, but if he knew what was going to happen, then he told one thing to Abraham.
Because those laws, maybe they were useful for a time, but they no longer became useful. In terms of bringing the chosen, in terms of bringing that truth to a broader audience of all of humanity.
Why couldn't he keep it on the Sunday then? Just to keep it consistent.
I'm saying that there is always going to be translation issues, but to say that's the message of Christianity proper, is that the truth has to be brought to every single man. And you can't do that. You know what I mean? Like
Well,
my brain's broken. I have to talk about Dark Maga soon. So in a Twitter space that I'm going to record.
Yeah, what is this Dark Maga I keep hearing about?
I don't know. It's what my friend Conan came up with. But would you agree, Canadian Catholic, that the universalism of Christianity necessitates a sort of changing of the guard when it comes to certain laws?
So I think we're granting way too much to Neil here. Neil hasn't demonstrated what's logical about progressive revelation at all. I mean, nothing. All we got is just his assertion that...
When he says, I don't change my mind, and he says God doesn't change his mind, keep my commandments, they're perfect.
That's just begging the question, because if God always intended to bring on the New Testament, then he never changed his mind. He could have only changed his mind if he never intended to bring the New Testament, which of course isn't the case. So you're stuck
No,
here.
It's actually you begging the question by saying that the New Testament is true because it says it is.
You're
That's
going.
literally what you said.
So look,
You're
going
saying
from
progressive revelation.
You're going from internal critique to external critique, right?
No,
And
you're
that's what
saying
you're doing.
you just said that the progressive revelation is fine because the New Testament said so.
I didn't say it was fine. I asked you, what's the problem with it?
It's
And you said
illogical.
nothing.
It means God changes his mind, and then he says he doesn't.
But progressive revelation can only be a change of mind if God didn't always intend to bring it about. Do you have an argument to say that God didn't always intend
What
to
you
bring it
just
about?
said literally is illogical. Literally.
I don't know what to say.
All right, the blood thing, and then I think we're going to be wrapping it up soon, going into the super chats, which you guys have to need more of. And once again, if you're enjoying this, subscribe and press the like button. Listen, like button is very important. If you press the like button, it's going to help out the algorithm tremendously, I guarantee it. So do that right now, press the like button, and also patreon.com/breaktherules, become a patron. Anyway, the blood and guts and whatever, okay, Gnostic
Again,
informant.
this is, to someone in the chat, this is the same trick problem that every fedora since the time of Epicurus, since the time of Richard Dawkins, comes up with, which is, oh my God, you mean to tell me that me ascribing my super limited human cognition and thought process onto the Lord, that God changed his mind? Oh my God, that's terrible. I really don't get this sort of...
It's because he says that he doesn't change his mind. If he didn't say that, then I wouldn't have an argument.
Wait, can we agree that God said that he cannot change his mind? Canadian Catholic, can we agree on that or no?
God doesn't change his mind. It's not only that he said that, but that's an objective fact, yeah.
Okay, so then he lied to, and I know I keep bringing it up, but what else is there? If he didn't lie, what else would it be?
I'm going to explain it one more time, and I'm going to be real slow this time. And if you guys don't get it, that's fine. Okay, I'm going to try this one more time, okay? I've changed my mind if I wasn't always intending to advance something, right? So let me bring an example, right? I'm playing chess. I go from move 10 to move 40, okay? Now, there can only be a change of mind if I was not always intending to play the same thing at move 40. That's my point. My point is that God always knew that there would be a New Testament. So there was never a change of mind. A change of mind would have occurred if God's initial thought was there won't be a New Testament, and voila, there comes the New Testament.
Why do you tell Moses that then?
That's an external... Okay, so now we're jumping... The first one was that there's internal critique, and now we're going back to an external critique, which is...
Fine.
It's not fine, because you're completely confused about how to argue. Are you letting go of this point? That God changed his mind? Are we supposed to jump around? You made this big deal, and now you're abandoning this argument?
No, my question about God changing his mind may be different from Neil's. So mine has to specifically do with whether there was something written in the Torah that said that this piece right here, this what I'm saying, is to be kept eternally just the way it is. Is there anything... Yes.
Yeah. So there are statements about how God's law is to be eternally kept with Israel. Israel didn't keep that law. Israel was unable to keep those laws as it stands. And God, saying that you should have done this, they failed. That was Israel's failure, not God's. Introduces the new Torah, the real Torah, the spiritual Torah, and he gives them unto the people. There's no changing of mind.
So was it then implied in the beginning that this law is only going to be universal if you're able to keep it, and the moment that you're not able
to... No, it wasn't universal. It's pretty clear that this...
Wait, no, not universal. By universal, sorry. By universal, I mean this is going to be forever. Like, this law is going to remain in place for good. Can we agree on that?
Yes, and it is. So it's not about the law. The statement is that the covenant would always remain with the nation of Israel. The covenant would perpetually remain with Israel, and it does remain to this day with Israel, which is why the Christian church is the new Israel according to Galatians.
The covenant, but what about the commandments? Would the commandments be in the same category of things that shall be kept forever and ever in this particular way?
So the commandments are to be kept forever and ever.
How do you go from the Levites being the only one that's allowed to deal with the temple to being the Catholic Church and anybody can now join? Where does that happen? Where does that decree happen?
So you can read Galatians. I can help you out. Galatians.
That's begging the question. The New Testament said so. Because the New Testament says so.
Well, if you're going to disregard the New Testament, then it's like there's literally an impossible barrier.
No. I just want to make sure that the point that I made is kind of hammered out to the end here. So, Canadian Catholic, you were saying before that when it comes to the laws, the commandments, these are to be kept forever or no? And if no, why not?
So the covenant is to be kept.
But I'm not talking about the covenant. I'm specifically talking about all these commandments. I remember like 360, whatever, however many commandments the Jews have to abide by.
No. The Jews were given certain commandments.
Yes.
And the indication isn't that all of them are to be kept at all times in the same way. No. The indication is that the covenant will last forever, and it does with Israel.
But why not the commandments? Where is the indication that those will go away the moment that some switch-up happens?
They haven't gone away. The point is that they are not obligatory to be saved. You can, for example, I guess if you, you can't keep the law.
But was it specified in the Old Testament that these commandments that you have to follow, that was it saying specifically that these commandments are going to remain with Israel forever or not?
No, the Old Testament says the opposite. The Old Testament says that the day is coming, saith the Lord, when I will make a new covenant with the
that was when they were in Babylon and they had to restore a second temple. That's the context of that. That's what that means.
Yeah, sure. So the Old Testament, in fact, teaches the opposite.
Jeremiah. It's Jeremiah. He's the one who wrote the Lamentations. So this is all in the same context. They're in captivity. And he's making a new covenant, which is the Second Temple Judaism.
Yeah.
It's not changing the laws. It's making a new covenant with going back to Israel.
Exactly, yeah. Which is, what I've said, yeah.
All right, so before we get to the final thing, which is about the blood, I want to point out something very interesting in the configuration of this box over here that we're in. So number one, I am wearing a white shirt, and Canadian Catholic is wearing a white shirt. Geo and Gnostic are wearing darker colors, while at the same time, Gnostic and I have a similar style with the beards going on and the headphones. Geo's got the headphones too, so that doesn't count. But Geo and Canadian Catholic, they're both Canadian, and they're both Catholic, and they're both within Montreal. Yet I'm wearing the white shirt here, and they're wearing the darker colors and the hats. Geo's wearing a hat, and Gnostic's wearing a hat. So there's all kinds of very interesting configurations going on based on the way the stream.
What's under Gnostic's hat? I wonder. We're gonna see some Norwood.
Well, you guys should take your hats off at the same time. And once again, what is under Geo's hat?
Oh shit! I don't have something under my hat.
Okay, next time. All right. Anyway, the blood question, and then we're going to draw this to a close with the super chats. So, Gnostic Informant, blood question, go.
Oh, okay. So, you just gotta look up Deuteronomy. That's what the law is. It says, "Do not eat the blood. You have to pour the blood on the ground like water, which is what you do for a sin offering." So, why would you imitate the sin offering by drinking its blood? Why would you? That sounds like the most opposite thing you can do from what God literally told Moses and the Israelites to do. That's all. That's
right. So this goes back to me and Robert Price actually did a great show about this before. This goes back to the question of binding and loosing, I guess, that rabbis could do, what they could bind and what they could loose, what new declarations they could. And the answer is that the new declaration that comes in the New Testament is that now we can make all things clean. God has made all things clean. That's the new declaration. Before they weren't. And now you're bound by it. And we're bound to affirm that, currently all things are clean. All food has been declared clean. Not in the sense that no food has bacteria in it, but in the sense that none of them offends God. And that's the ruling. That ruling sticks when Peter is shown, the vision. Actually, the vision is symbolic, but Christ declares all food clean, and I think it's in Mark or Matthew.
So what you're saying?
And that sticks. That's the new rabbinic ruling. That
Fine. But check this out, right? I'm a Jew living in Israel. I'm a Sadducees, right? First century Jew living in Israel. And I have on one hand Moses getting told directly from God face to face on what to do about this. And then I have on the other hand some guy named Peter who gets a vision and a dream from Jesus.
No, it's actually Jesus. Jesus is the one who declares all food clean.
That's what I'm saying. He gets a vision from Jesus. Which
Well,
is
actually,
not Yahweh.
no, the vision.
So I'm just hear me out though. What do you do? You're told to follow the law and never stray from the law. All of a sudden, you have this guy saying, "I had a vision from Jesus who said he could eat what you want now." On the other hand, you have Moses who gets a word directly from God.
You're wrong. So the one who makes.
How am I wrong?
You're wrong because you're saying that it was Peter who declared that.
Peter's the one who had the vision.
The cleanness of foods was declared before the vision. It was declared by Jesus in Matthew or Mark when he declares foods clean. When he talks about the hand washing ritual.
No,
Peter's vision.
That's not what that meant. That he said
Peter's vision was more about that Gentiles could be saved, which is another example of a declaration. But the more important point is here. Who are you supposed to trust? Well, you're supposed to trust both. You're supposed to trust that this is the commandment that God gave to Moses at that time, and we have a new binding teaching in Jesus and Peter, if you want, and that sticks.
So you're saying that Jesus eating bread with unwashed hands means you can eat whatever you want?
No, in that same chapter, it says that having said that, he declared all food clean. Write that in quotations, and it'll give you the chapter. He declared all food clean.
He says, neglecting the commandment of God, you hold the tradition of men. You have a fine way of setting aside the commandment of God in order to keep your tradition. So, again, we're just going over. This is like a circle. This is the same argument. Is how do you go from food being unclean, having laws, the Torah, which is perfect, to it's all fine now. That's my entire argument.
Because Mark 7:19 says, in saying this, Jesus declared all foods clean. So a new rabbi says that this no longer applies.
Yeah,
and the new rabbi,
how is that like valid though compared to what the Old Testament says?
Why is so? I've asked you what's wrong with progressive revelation, and your answer is how is it valid? I'm just getting tired here, right?
No, I know it's the same argument. That's why I just said that.
What is wrong with progressive revelation? What is wrong with it? Tell me what's wrong with it right now.
Because it's illogical when God says He doesn't change His mind. I said this a million times. When God says, "Keep my laws and my commandments; they're perfect. I don't change my mind."
But you don't understand. God only changes His mind if the progressive revelation wasn't part of His mind to begin with. If it was, then He didn't change it. Is this hard to grasp?
No, it's not. But it doesn't.
Well, Michael has a great point here.
Why do you keep repeating the same thing when you've been explained?
Because
I educated you on this topic. Thank you, teacher. You don't have to continue.
I've stayed completely clear on everything. All you're doing, and Lev, I got to point this out. You're taking another example, and we're arguing over the same thing. We've already established that.
Yes, because you haven't answered what is logical about progressive revelation.
I'm saying that
what's logical about progressive revelation?
Because when God says, "I don't change my mind, keep my laws, my commandments," progressive revelation doesn't make sense anymore. It means
wait, Michael in the chat says from Matthew 15:17. Don't you see that whenever it enters for the mouth goes into the stomach and that out of the body, but things that come out of the mouth come from the heart, and these make a man unclean. Well, so clearly there is a changing there of a strict dietary law to the message of Christ. It is what makes you unclean in your thoughts and actions, which is really matters. That is the spirit of the law.
Imagine if there was this Twitch streamer lady who has a lot of simps, and she's all like, "Keep sending me all this money, you pay pigs."
Amaranth?
Yes, and then all of a sudden one day she decides to scorn these simps and say like, oh, these men are so sexist and
They do that all the
whatever.
time. Look at fucking what's her face.
Exactly. No, but my
Fucking,
example here.
the mid one, one.
Yes, but my example here is
I
that
can't believe I forget her name. Pokimane.
So
she fucking detests her own fans.
yeah,
What are you talking about?
In Pokimane's eternal wisdom, she knew ahead of time that she was going to be very, be very demeaning towards the people that she once considered to be her sustenance, the pay piggies. And would you say there's a similar thing going on here with God?
How is that logically contradictory? Every fucking Twitch thought hates their pay piggies.
But what I'm saying is that from the very beginning, like, let's say from the very beginning she knew that this is what's going to happen, and she put on airs for the pay piggies, and later on she started to denounce the pay piggies. Would it be a similar thing happening with Christianity and God, where in the beginning God was, that was Canadian Catholics' point, if I understand it correctly, that in the beginning God was like, oh yeah, sure, Abraham, yeah, we're going to do a covenant, it's going to be great, nothing will go, it's going to, keep the covenant forever and ever and ever. It's like, whoops, oh, turns out that you weren't doing things exactly the way I wanted you to do them. Fuck you. Now these are the new new Israelites.
But here's the reason why it's illogical. What was the reason why Yahweh told Moses not to eat shellfish? Can you give me a reason why? What's the truth behind that?
That has nothing to do with illogicality.
But you're saying progressive revelation. You're saying he changes his mind later on for whatever reason. What's the reason to begin with? When it should, if he knows all things and he knows the future, he's perfect, omniscient, all-knowing. Why didn't he just say from the beginning that whatever goes in is not what defiles the man, what comes out of it defiles man? Why didn't he tell Moses that?
So there's a bunch of, I'm not studied on the topic, but if I had to guess, there's a good reason for why. Maybe one possible reason is that there's some kind of pagan connotation to these foods. The other point that I could think of if I were asked this, maybe some health or the beliefs about health, I don't know personally if
exactly.
And what is illogical about that?
Because when you say one thing and then completely flip it on its head, that's what illogical is.
So
this is a very Richard Dawkins shellfish argument.
I'm just asking, what was the reason for it? What was the reason for it? When you know that Jesus,
I'm sure the dietary laws were originally grounded in some logic in terms of the certain pathogens that were going around at the time or something of that nature.
I still don't
he
understand.
created it. He created all that stuff. He's the creator of the world, right? Why even make shellfish then? Why even?
What is bad? What happened to good people? I can't believe it. Why, God? Why?
Why did he just say right then?
Neil.
Why didn't you just tell Moses? Hey Moses, it's not what goes in your body; it's what comes out. Keep it that way.
But he did say that to Moses. But what do you think the commandments are about?
The what?
What do you think the commandments are about? Are they not for proper action and behavior as well?
Yeah.
So the truth of what comes out of a man's mouth is more important. That is a very deep theological distinction. That is saying that it is what your thoughts and actions and behavior is. It is what you speak, the truth that you speak of the Lord that counts. That is what really counts. You don't eat shellfish. Maybe the truth of not eating shellfish is maybe that there were contaminants or so forth. There's the historical reasons why people didn't eat shellfish or the cut
or the mixing of like a fish.
This is what I mean is that. And you say, oh, why did God create those pathogens? Well, that would mean that we exist in a perfect world without disease and so forth. Maybe those pathogens had a purpose in terms of the evolution of the world at one point. That is why they are there. Mosquitoes have a reason. Flies have a reason. I fucking hate flies and mosquitoes.
Yeah, especially like the black flies in Canada, right?
There's a purpose to things. Why does deadly diseases exist out in nature? There's at least 50 different substances in the rainforest that can give you cancer. Well, maybe because of the function of those particular fauna needs those pathogens that may be harmful to humans, but they're not harmful to a certain tree out in the Amazon. That's what I'm saying.
But they would have still been
Richard Dawkins tier bullshit about why do bad things happen to good people? Why do natural disasters happen? There's a reason why they happen. Anyways, I'm sorry, Neil. I'm not saying that you're saying this. I'm just saying that when I'm just saying that when the argument comes up, I'm like, I get really fucked over by it because it's like,
It's fine.
You know what I mean?
No, but I think, Neil, you were making a different argument about the shellfish. Not so much about the Richard Dawkins stuff, but more about how exactly would it translate that this dietary restriction was lifted. If it is for health reasons, wouldn't it make sense for that to still be kept going? It's not like there was some industrial revolution during that time.
Oh, look at
that
this!
Ended up,
I'm laughing.
cleaning...
Dunning-Kruger.
Well, no,
Listen,
in all seriousness, like there wasn't
I'm
any...
not speculating. The cancer-causing agents in the Amazon, they actually do have benefits to certain plants and animal life that are harmful to humans. Do you not see that certain things in nature are harmful to other species and beneficial to others? I mean, that's just... I don't get what I'm speculating there.
That makes more sense when you talk about natural selection, so...
Yeah, I don't think that natural selection has anything contradictory to do with the truth of Christ. I mean... If you want to go to some, Bible thumping creationist stuff, I mean that's
no. I'm beyond that. I'm like full. I'm like full Rudolf
that.
Steiner about the whole creation stuff.
So, all right, so I'm just gonna say that. I think you guys know where I stand. My argument applies to all these different areas of the Bible. I mean, Catholic, if you want to get the last word, go ahead. I won't even reply.
And then super chat.
Yeah.
Sorry, I went off a little bit there.
Wait, was I?
No.
If you want to say anything and finish off,
okay. Let me clarify something. There are many Christians that don't believe in. Oh, sorry.
Wait, who gets the last word? I didn't hear it.
There are many Christians who don't believe in Evola. Okay, Canadian Catholic, you get the last word.
All right, yeah, go ahead.
Right, so my answer is that I was invited.
I actually have to go. Yeah.
Right. So my last word is going to be that I was invited here by Neil, who I don't have anything else against, to debate whether Christianity is logical. And my point is that Neil seems to have a lot of anger directed towards the Bible or maybe Christianity, which is totally understandable, but he has utterly failed to demonstrate any kind of illogicality. All of his views... The point of the last word is that I'm the last one that gets to speak. The point is, I think that it's very clear from this debate that anybody on this needs to say that Neil failed to show that Christianity is illogical. And I think by default, if he failed to show that Christianity is illogical, it means that his case failed. I mean, that it doesn't mean that Christianity isn't illogical. It just means that he failed to do so, demonstrate so. And I would say failed very badly. All of the examples he brought were easily rebutted and rebuttable. And the only reason they weren't rebutted isn't because they were tough, at least as he presented them, but because I couldn't keep track of all of them. There were just flying so many. I just had to, keep track of some of them. So my view is that Christianity isn't illogical. My further view is that it wasn't demonstrated that Christianity is illogical. We didn't see a single argument which wouldn't be a non sequitur from which we could infer that Christianity is illogical. And I think that this debate has hit a resounding victor. It just so happens that victor was me. Okay, I'm joking, but you guys
get... on to the super chats, everybody. All right, so super chat from Yakubi. Yes, Yakuvi, Itzraim, 199, Gnostic destroyed CC.
Wow.
That's just like your opinion, man. Okay. Yeah. Next one, Ted Francis, 499. I agree that Gnostic won. Oh, man, a lot of Gnostic fans today. Next one, Nick Larson, 499. Didn't get here in time to have a relevant question or contribute to the discussion, but thanks for the stream, boys. Pumped for the PVK. Oh, that's right. I got to make an announcement. Break the Rules is finally going to have, it's finally going to have two people. It's going to have Derek Lambert, and it's going to have Paul Vanderklay talking about epistemology. What can we be certain of? So I think it's going to be pretty similar to what's going down over here today, but I know, Gio, you've wanted to have on Paul for a very long time, and he
responded to our the Paju talk.
Yes, that's right. So there we go, and here, let me just do the final super chats over here.
Meant to say, by the way, evolution. I said that there are Christians that do not believe in evolution. That's fine. I think that, to me anyways, this is like a long-standing thing that's been going on since I was literally like 13 years old. I read that Francis Collins book. Unfortunately, Collins, he's, cucked out on the God Hair Fauci question. But I think that there is no reasonable contradiction between a theory of macroevolution at least, and the universe being designed by our Lord. I think that, people that put too much stuff. I mean, first of all, I think like getting in the weeds of it. I mean, Christianity is just. I mean, evolution is like evolutionary theory has been contradictory and wrong as well. It's like, I mean, to me, this is just like 2007, new atheist YouTube shit.
Yeah.
And I think that
No, human beings have existed for billions of years and we're beings of light. Anyway, Massive McGee, Massive McGee, 2 pounds. Neil must remove his hat this instant.
No.
All right, next. Dharma Defender, 2 smackaroos. Translation issues does not equal out-and-out fraud.
Okay.
Next one, Dharma Defender, $5. All of this is predicated on Jesus' authority. Only if Jesus is God does he have the right to abolish, reinterpret, add to God's law.
Well, he is God, so there you go.
And he changed his mind then.
The ABC, the ABC 1 2 3 4 5 6 3 9 9, $5. At one point, a father can tell his son not to drink beer, but at a later date, it's okay to have one with him. Progressive revelation. Oh man! Although I like my example with the e-thought better, but anyway. And the ABC CC1 via BTFO. So there we go. That's one for Canadian Catholic. And Canadian Catholic, before we go, I just want to say, очень приятно было с вами разговаривать. Слава Украине!
Да, спасибо. Слава Украине.
There we go. All right. Thank you guys so much for watching. When this stream is ended, you're going to see a link to the stream with Derek and Paul that's going to be happening this Monday. So be sure to subscribe. And all the people who are watching this, if you have not subscribed right now, please subscribe right now. Give a like. Every like you add is helping with the algorithm tremendously in order to get Break the Rules up there. It is very important that you do that. And last but not least, patreon.com/breaktherules. If you become a patron, you are going to get all kinds of great stuff. MP3s of the episodes after they come out. You are going to get very beautiful magnets when you become a...
Oh, one more super chat.
Ooh.
This is by Sobek, Lord of the Four. CC, who is your favorite heretic? Aris says hi. So, who is your favorite heretic?
So by heretic, you mean somebody who is declared heretic? That would definitely be Origen. There's no contest in that.
You say that.
Interesting.
All right. And before we are finished here, I am going to, let's see, over here. See, this is the problem when I don't actually have the folders in front of me. Okay, now I do. Here we go. Patreon promo. There we are. Okay, so you're going to get very beautiful magnets. You see them on the screen over here. These are going to be for $20 tier. Maple, mahogany, ashwood, cherry. By the way, some of the people who are requesting the magnets, they are currently being worked on right now. My father is hard at work making these out of really good quality wood. So you're going to get these absolutely beautiful magnets created by my father for the $20 tier. For the $30 tier, you are going to get an exquisite print from Giovanni Pennacchietti. You could see the man in action over here making this beautiful print from the TFW No GF series on the screen right here, right now. And lastly, but not least, if you are a fan of sticks, for $50 patronage, you are going to get this absolutely beautiful Styx dragon. It's going to be pretty similar to what you see on the screen over here. Or you are going to get a custom magnet. So whatever design magnet you want, that's what's going to happen. Also, you are going to get another painting from Gio in a Bob Ross style. And you are going... I just imagine Ross right now. You remember that? You remember that, Ross? You know, the bathtub? Okay.
I don't remember that, Lev.
Mr. Metacore, Ross, the bathtub. You remember that whole...
Oh, the cheese pizza.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, that guy.
He
kept screaming his head off.
Yes,
Yeah,
guys, listen, do me a favor. After you watch this and after you bookmark the event, go to YouTube and search Ross Mega Re. And just put your headphones on and just listen to that. It's going to be one of the most blissful experiences you've ever had in your entire life. Trust me. Anyway, you're also going to get Warhammer 40K
There's someone
figures.
on Twitter that said to me, I hope Lev is on okay terms with Jay Dyer. Will give $400 to whoever can set up a debate between him and Gnostic and 4.
Oh man.
Who, me and Lev?
Nice.
No, Gnostic Informant and Jay
And Jay
Dyer.
Dyer.
I don't
Yeah,
care.
yeah.
I'll hit him.
That would be good. But I would love for you know who to appear there as well. But we'll see what happens.
He didn't want to debate James Valiant. He backed out of that one. But
Yes.
I don't care.
No, I mean
No, he had something to do. I don't know.
Maybe-
Well, why
maybe
did he
Jay-
reschedule then? He was scared. Jay Dyer.
I don't think he was scared.
No, I mean, I
Jay
could- I
Dyer
could-
fears no
Never
man.
No,
reschedule.
here's
We
I
found
can
debating somebody
I can just
between
give you.
Catholic and I
Hold on, no,
every
for everybody
time.
watching, for everybody watching, I don't want to mince any
You're
words.
just afraid. This is a
No,
cope. This is a cope.
No, I don't want to mince any words. I could tell you exactly what happened and provide screenshots if necessary. So what ended up happening?
Don't do all that. I'm joking.
Okay. No. But in all seriousness, what happened with Jay Dyer, for those who don't know, is that he said at first that he was interested, but then he said that a project came up and he was not able to do that. But then upon further inspection, when I asked him, like, hey, can we do it like maybe next week or the week after, then he said he's not interested. And then he announced that he was sick. So that was that was how that went down. But anyway, hopefully we're going to get Jay Dyer back in here with James Valiant and Gnostic, so that will be a lot of fun. The invitation is open whenever. Anyway, this is also Jules P. Hamilton's Warhammer 40k figures as well for $50, and that's it. Okay, the show's over, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Be sure to subscribe, and also be sure to go to the Discord, because we got some new people in here that I want to bring into the Discord server. All the new people, get into the Discord server right now. Here is the link, and let me send you the Patreon link as well for all the people who don't want to type in patreon.com/breaktherules, even though that's incredibly easy to write down. Here we go. Patreon.com/breaktherules. You know it, you love it. Canadian Catholic, where can the good people find you?
You can find me on many places, but I think YouTube is probably the hottest one right now for me. You definitely want to go and subscribe to me because I am in kind of a need of expansion now. My podcast has been one of the best. It's internationally well, according to me, it's internationally praised. You guys can see some of the feedback I've gotten, but basically, world's greatest minds. I've had Noam Chomsky, just go over the list. So I mean, it really would help, guys, if we could do more. We need more subscribers and more engagement. So if you guys can do that, even subscribing and liking videos helps. But thanks for everything, by the way, to all of you.
You had Noam Chomsky on?
Yeah.
Holy crap!
And you had, what's his name, who I'm about to have on too, is a philosopher. Oh my God, I can't think of his name. What is his name? The atheist philosopher. I can't remember his name. You know him. No, Canadian Catholic. You had him on. The big name. Fuck, I can't think of his name. I don't know. Whatever. You had him on. No, the one that you said is your favorite atheist philosopher. You told him that.
Oh, Graham Oppie, of course.
Yes.
Graham Oppie doesn't like me anymore, but
By the way, I like how you call him No AM Chomsky, because it reminds me because he's like an older dude, so he doesn't really he goes to sleep for a long time, so he misses out all the AM hours. No 1 a.m. for him, no 2 a.m., not even 9 a.m. So he sleeps for a really long time and wakes up at noon. He avoids the AM, so he's No AM Chomsky. Anyway, guys, this is the end of the stream. Thank you so much for watching. I appreciate all of